Coming up on this episode of Flirtations, we have Hannah Deindorfer, the Libido Fairy, on the show to explore with us physical intimacy, libidos, and sex and dating. Up for discussion are questions around consent, desire, and the touch barrier. We'll play in the space of intimacy here as well as we talk about different ways to connect with your partner or partners on that physical level, and we'll even go into your kissing dilemmas. Oh yeah, but that's not all. Hannah will also offer guidance on how to navigate mismatched libidos, responsive versus spontaneous desire, what to do in those moments when intimacy dips, and how to communicate your desires without any shame. So, whether you're struggling with desire differences, looking to strengthen emotional intimacy, or simply curious about how to approach these conversations in dating, this episode is full of actionable advice that is sure to keep the spark alive. Come on, flirties, let's meet Hannah.
I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. Hello, my name is Benjamin. I'm the flirt coach and a gay Libra. Everyone has an inner flirt.
Hey, flirty.
Live, laugh, flirt.
Work the flirt.
Work the flirt. Delulu is the Salulu. Expert on the flirt.
Hey, flirty. There's always another flirt.
Everyone has an inner flirt. Get out of your head and into the flirt.
Flirties, on the show today, we're going to be navigating bedroom dynamics with the Libido Fairy, Hannah Deindorfer, on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Benjamin. I'm so excited to be here and chatting with you.
I am so excited as well. This is really a dream collaboration for me, and the Flirties came through with some incredible questions. I can't wait to bring them so much information and conversation today. I'm curious here, what inspired you to get into this work you do?
I think, like a lot of therapists, helpers, healers, coaches, I came through my own struggles in this area of my life. Some of my earliest sexual experiences were non-consensual, coerced, pretty abusive. And then for a long time, sex was just this source of validation and approval. And I, traded my body for security in relationships or affection. And sex was never really something that was pleasurable for me, enjoyable for me, fulfilling, rewarding, anything like that. And it really became a problem in my late 20s, like 27-ish. I was in a long-term relationship. And this pattern for me had continued to recur where at the beginning of relationships, I was really excited and, all of the love chemicals, that's always going on at the beginning. And then a few months in to every long-term relationship, my desire would just drop off. And I was in this relationship for about 3 years, and it started to become a really, really big problem for us. And I tried all of the things that people traditionally recommend, like, oh, get your hormones checked, or like take these natural libido supplements, or, use some sex toys, or just drink some wine, or take the CBD gummies, or blah, blah, blah. Like all the traditional stuff people recommend. And none of it worked. And that just made me feel even more broken. And we got to the point where we even tried opening our relationship to increase desire, try to like solve this problem. And that just destroyed everything, and it completely imploded. But that was a huge turning point for me. I'm very grateful for that experience because it sent me on this mission where I was like, okay, I have to figure this out. I have to understand sex and libido and intimacy and what my problem with it is. And there has to be other people that are struggling with this too. And so I just went on this 2-year mission, sharing a lot on Instagram while I did that. And figuring out all the things. And now I'm in a place where I do that full time.
And this is so good. And I love talking about turning points and sort of what was happening with your mindset. At that point. But I think you're already speaking to the experience that a lot of us have, and myself included, where you're trying to figure out dating and relationships, and sex can oftentimes be the thing we offer to keep someone close to us, or to try and increase that connection, build that intimacy, to try and get someone to like us. It's such a difficult, it's not always this straightforward, cut and dry, very easy process. So we're going to be getting into a lot of the bedroom questions, but I want to stay here at the top of the conversation and what that turning point was like for you when you knew you needed to make some changes.
Quite honestly, it was a really rock bottom moment. Like I had just lost my relationship. I was seeing someone who was like really into the kink space, and that simultaneously like opened my eyes to a lot of possibilities and like how far out of my depth I was in this area. But it also highlighted all of my shadows and insecurities and how deeply disconnected I really was from my body and my sexuality and what this really was for me. And it was a really kind of dark, lonely period where I realized, oh, like this is actually something that is a massive issue. And it was so interesting because up to that point, I had done many years of therapy and personal development and all of these like self-help, self-healing things from the time I was like 7 years worth of stuff. And I had never looked at my sexuality and never explored that area. And I was like, oh shit, this is an unlock. Like this is a major key that I'm completely missing.
Yeah. And this is one of the reasons why I love following your work so much, because I've struggled with this in my own dating life as well, in my own relationships, where I have a naturally lower libido. I consider myself, I identify as a demisexual, and I'm also a homosexual gay man. So like sometimes I get these sex questions from women and I'm like, who, when it comes to intimacy and regulating your nervous system, that kind of thing, I got you. But when it comes to your sex questions, I don't know of anyone more ill prepared to answer some of those better, right? Because I forget, I'll get sex questions. I'm like, oh right, sex is a thing. I forget people are really into that sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I think I would guess you're probably, as a demisexual, also someone who has responsive desire, would be my guess. And we can like talk about that and what that means. Maybe as the questions come up, I'm sure it will come up. But just in hearing that, I'm like, oh, well, if you don't think about sex often, but it actually is something that like when you're there with someone that you really care about and it's good, you're like, oh, I really love this. But like, it's just not something that crosses your mind. You probably have responsive desire, which is totally normal and totally healthy.
I'm going to put that responsive desire. We're going to be coming back to that, flirties, for sure, where in my journey with sex, I've had to understand my own wants, needs, desires. Of course, that's part of it, but also boundaries and how to communicate boundaries. And so that's going to be a part of this conversation today as well, because regardless of how you identify and who you are, your gender, who you're dating, physical intimacy and physical touch is such a huge part of connection and relationship. So really, really glad you're here today to help us with this conversation. I'm curious now, what some of the things you see from your clients, from your audience, maybe kind of those big topics, if you see some trends, in the people you work with.
Some of the biggest challenges that people struggle with, one is just around communication, like not knowing how to say no, not knowing how to say yes, not knowing how to ask for the things that they want, not knowing how to initiate, not knowing how to ask for a pause in the moment, like if they don't like something that's going on. How to even bring sex up. There's just so much around communication that's really challenging, because most of our communication around sex is silenced from a time that we're really young. It feels really awkward. It feels really uncomfortable to talk about, or we receive no communication about sex from the people that we grow up with. And so that again tells us it's a shameful, taboo topic that we just don't talk about and we're not supposed to. And so the environment, the socializing that we grow up in tells us that we only talk about sex if there's something wrong. And that sex itself is something wrong that we shouldn't talk about. And so that makes it so hard to talk about something that's so important. So communication is a huge issue. Also navigating the differences in people's preferences which is so natural. Like this is actually a function of every relationship, that you are not going to want the same thing as this other person that you care about. And that difference may be in how you want to initiate. It may be in what specific types of sexual activities you want to participate in. It might be in preferences of the amount you want to have sex. And that changes over the course of your life. And so if you're in a long-term relationship with someone, you're going to navigate all of those things because you change as you grow. So like those are, I think, two of the major buckets that a lot of like sub issues kind of fall into, is like, how do we talk about this thing? And then how do we collaborate when we're different? But I would say most of the people that I primarily help are women who struggle with a lower, what they would categorize as a lower libido than their partner. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Two really important themes: communication and just where you're at. Kind of, we oftentimes don't voice those expectations or our own boundaries. And so we're trying to communicate that through eye contact or through touch, or you're trying to feel your way through it. And then I've been in your shoes as well, where it's like something wasn't, a situation wasn't forced, but I didn't, like, internally, I wasn't consenting, but my actions, I wasn't voicing anything. And so my actions indicated that I was in it, that I was consenting, but inside I was like, oh God, this doesn't feel right. I really don't want to be doing this. And then you're right, so much, especially if you're growing up queer, or because the flirt community is really global. So if you grew up in a society culturally, religiously, that just was more, shamed sex, and it wasn't something you talked about, it's like, how are you don't know what you don't know. You gotta, have education.
Yeah. Yeah. Terrible lack of education and so much misinformation. Like we watch the media that we consume continues to reinforce heteronormative narratives that are actually like counterproductive to pleasure and collaboration in sex. So it's tough. It's hard out there.
Yeah. If you're getting your sex education from movies, from TV, it's like it's stylized, it's romanticized. It's sort of it glosses over a lot of the intricacies that really come up with navigating different libidos. Or just this. The next question I want to ask is when. Because this came through a few times, like, when is too soon? Is that a thing? Is there a right time to have sex? Is there only one way? Wrapping a lot of questions in here, but really it's when. How do you know when maybe you're ready?
I think first, the first question before that is actually like, when do we talk about sex?
Ooh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think that you're ready to have sex with someone until you've communicated about sex with someone. Okay. Like I unless that you have talked to someone beforehand about what does sex mean to you and what's important to you to get out of a sexual experience, and what are some negative experiences that you've had with sex that you don't want to experience again, and what are some things that you really have enjoyed in the sexual experiences that you have that you would like to have again, and how will we know if we hit a boundary? Like, what happens in your body when something doesn't feel good to you, and how will we communicate when we hit a boundary? If you haven't had those primary questions answered about sex before entering into a sexual experience, you probably are not going to have a sexual experience that's magical and amazing and beautiful and fun and all the things that you want, because you haven't cleared all those hurdles yet. Those are intimacy hurdles that make sex better. Like, if you talk about all those things, it's like you're undressing before you get there. Actually.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, where you could even, dare I say, flirt your way through this conversation, allow the flirt to be foreplay a little bit. And so I think I want to give the flirties now some communication strategies, because I know there's going to be at least a few listening like, oh, that doesn't sound sexy, right? How can I make this kind of conversation where you're really communicating expectations to an extent, I think, fun, but flirty, and maybe allow it to build some of that tension, some of that excitement.
100%. Well, like 90% of communication is nonverbal.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's not in what you're saying. Like you say, you ask the questions, like the content is important, but then it's in the way you hold your body and the eye contact that you're making. It's
Okay.
in the tone that you're asking the question. So what are some things before that you've really, I don't know, maybe liked? What
Yeah.
has like sparked your curiosity? What's turned you on? Like what's really like, depending on how you want to go into the conversation, if you want it to be, if you want to come into the conversation, have it be more vulnerable, then you can take a tone that is more vulnerable. But if you want it to be a fun, flirty conversation, then
Okay.
bring that energy, like connect to the part of you that is like a seductress or a seductor, not or a pursuer. Like, how do you want to show up? Do you want to show up a dominant? Like, tell me what you like. Tell me the
Okay.
things that you've liked in sex. Like, you
Okay.
can come at it from multiple ways depending on, I mean, you can even like, now we're getting super in the weeds, depending on like the type of sexual interaction that you want to cultivate with
Yeah.
someone, you can communicate those questions, lead that conversation with that energy. So if you want an interaction where you're following and you're maybe a little bit more submissive in the conversation, and you want to appear maybe demure, or you want to appear more shy, or like the archetype of like virgin or pure, or like, which is a totally sexual hot archetype,
100%. Yeah.
come in with this like, oh, I don't, I've like tried a few things sexually, but like, you tell me some of the things that you've liked. So you can come in with that. Or if you want to come in like this, like
Okay.
strong, dominant, in charge, I'm going to dom you, like you follow me, I'm in control, come into the conversation with like, well, this is what I've tried sexually. I love it when XYZ happens. I love when this happens. It's so hot to me when XYZ, you're on your knees, da 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 da. Tell me what you want. Because it's hot to me when somebody communicates with me too.
Yes. Oh my
Right.
gosh. I'm learning so much, Hannah. I'm thinking about now, like, what would be my
What's your
personality?
persona?
I don't know. See, I feel like kind of have a switch up where I tend to get anxious and nervous leading up
Mm.
to it. But then in
Mhm.
the moment, it's like I'm more like I just want to relax into it and kind of feel my way
Mhm.
through it and see what those dynamics are like and how my body is going to respond and how
Yeah.
someone is going to respond as well. And so I tend to follow the more slow burn approach, but then maybe I do get into a little dom. I don't know, Hannah. Perhaps,
I
perhaps.
think you can play with it.
I think you
Play
can
with
play with
it.
it too.
That's the best part about sex is like it just has endless possibilities. Like
Yeah.
you can actually be anything there. Like even
Yeah.
if you think like, oh, I think this personality type or this kind of vibe is like what I really want to create, you could get there and completely change your mind and be like, actually, like
Mm,
I want to try on a different character
right.
today. And that's so fine. Like you can totally do that. I think for what you're describing though, with if you get a little bit nervous or if you're someone
Yes.
that feels a little anxious or like there is some like inherent vulnerability because sex is inherently vulnerable, I
Hmm.
actually do think that going the route of like more authentic, more vulnerable communication, which is like, hey, it's kind of scary for me to talk about this.
Mm,
So, I do want to bring up these topics, but this is really vulnerable for me because I don't talk a lot about this with people.
yeah.
I want to talk about what you prefer and what you like in the bedroom. And I want to talk about boundaries and like what that
Mm,
looks like for us and how we can make sure that our sexual experiences are really fun and feel really safe and really good for me. So like,
yeah.
let's talk about that. So you can come at it with that energy. And I think that would,
Yeah.
for you personally, probably would be a safer energy to come with that would set you up to be more expressive
Yeah.
in the actual situation.
Oh, I'm definitely going to try that next time. That's going to be my next approach. So what do you think about having these conversations over text or digitally versus in person? Yeah, what do you think?
I think a lot of people will probably feel more comfortable and
Mm,
safer doing it via text. But
mm,
I think that you miss a lot of the potential for connection.
yeah.
Um, like when a topic is inherently vulnerable, that means that there is an opening for both pain and also connection. Like you can't have the intimacy and the vulnerability and the connection without the risk. And so when you send a text, you're like reducing a lot of the risk, because if someone rejects you, you can deal with your emotions on your own and it feels like, less risky.
Yeah.
But if you have the conversation face to face, there's more emotional risk, but there's also more potential reward, which is like really deep connection with someone. So it's like, what are you optimizing for? Are you optimizing for just sex, or are you optimizing for connection? Neither's wrong.
Right.
But
really good points, because what you were saying earlier about how much communication is nonverbal as well. So if you're having it in person, I think you're giving yourself so much more space to really play with that conversation too, with your eye contact, with your body language. You can, even if you're there, you can explore some really kind of, some physical touch, like on the top of the thigh, the knee, the shoulder, low back, you're holding hands, things like that. You're sort of nudging into one another. So it can maybe just enhance that connection and intimacy before you're in the bedroom, clothes are coming off, that kind of thing. Okay, I think I want to, any thoughts here before we get into some of the sex questions?
I mean, no, let's just go for it. We're good. Let's get into it. Yeah.
Okay. Really helpful, because something like two big themes I get from your content are just about how much intimacy is really rooted in vulnerability and being able to feel safe. And that's something that has been true for me. It's not necessarily that I have a low libido. It's just I need to feel like I can trust somebody, that I've communicated and that we've set up some of those expectations. Because when I didn't do that, and I would go into a situation where it's like, I feel like I even have to overperform because I don't want to disappoint them, right? Like I want this to be the best experience they've ever had, and I forget what I want and my own fun and pleasure and the whole thing because I'm just so focused on the other person. Yeah.
Yep. Been there.
Oh my gosh. I know. But like you get to really enjoy these experiences as well, Flirties. Like this is, we want you to have a good time. So let's start with, how about some kissing? Hannah? I get this question so often about going in for the first kiss. Who makes that first move? How can you sort of initiate that you're open to it? Yeah. So let's maybe start with kissing.
Oh my gosh. So much of like the energy, I'm really like digging here about like my past experience. So much of the energies of like a first kiss or initiating kissing is about closeness and eye contact and like just feeling the vibe. Like if you are in really good conversation. So again, like lead up of conversation that is intimate conversation. So intimate conversation is talking about things like your emotions, talking about the future, talking about really deep personal preferences, talking about things that are inherently vulnerable. Anything like that is intimate conversation that often draws people in towards each other. And so you can start to look for, if you're looking to see if someone is open to kissing, notice if they are following the same body language patterns as you. Notice if you tilt your head, do they tilt their head? Notice if you nod, are they nodding back? Notice if you, right, exactly. Like, are they matching your body language? If they are, it means you're in rapport, and it means that they're in agreement with a lot of what you're saying. Like they're on the same page as you, essentially. And then feel your own body. Like, do you feel a sense of calm around them? Do you feel safe? Mixed with, like, obviously a little bit of excitement. If you've never kissed before, there's going to be a little nervousness. Maybe your palms are a little sweaty. Maybe your heart's racing a little bit. But sometimes, like, if there's extreme dysregulation, like you feel frozen, or you feel like you want to run away, or there's like really, really big butterflies going on in your belly, that can actually be an indicator that your body is telling you that this person isn't a safe person. And we often override those signals from our body because we think that means honeymoon stage excitement, love, or we've like grown up in an environment where those things actually are coded as love, even though they're not safe. So paying attention, like, does your body feel open? Do you feel relaxed mostly? Do you feel a little bit of excitement? Do you feel each other leaning into each other? Is the energy there? And then some of the best signals for like, I want to kiss you are literally just look at someone's mouth.
Oh my gosh, that.
Look at their lips.
Yes.
Look at their eyes, look at their lips.
Absolutely. I can remember this date I was on, and the guy was constantly just sort of like biting his bottom lip. He was always looking at my mouth, and I was like, okay, he wants to kiss me. So,
he wants to kiss.
Oh my gosh. That's what we're going to do. So what I would do, right, we were sitting across from each other at a table. And so I would sort of like, could I touch my knee to his and sort of graze it against his leg a little bit? Maybe a little bit of footsie action. If you're getting up to go to the bathroom, go over, sort of press down on their shoulders a little bit, something like that. Yeah. And when you're starting to mirror the body language, you can hold hands, graze a finger. Yeah. You're starting to create some of that physical touch. And then how are you both responding? Are you continuing, like you said, to lean in? Is there interest? Yeah. And so, and then going for it.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I think that there's like, if you can feel that there's not clear consent happening from their body, because there's like, there's layers of consent, right? Like there's explicit verbal consent where someone says, yes, I want to kiss you. But someone can say, yes, I want to kiss you, but they're like, look really uncomfortable and they're leaning back and they look afraid. Like that person is not consenting.
Yes. Good point. Yeah.
So, and the opposite can be true. Like if they're really leaning forward and they're really leaning in and you can see the vibe is there and the energy is there, it's not always 100% necessary to ask, like, can I kiss you? Right. Or like, I really would like to kiss you right now, because you're getting all of this information and data from their body. If you're someone that just likes to like feels really good with explicit verbal consent, you can say it in a sexy way. You can say it in a flirty way, which is like, I did not hear anything that you just said. I cannot stop thinking about kissing you right now. Is that okay with you? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
And like that can give you that last little bit of confidence that you need to like actually go in for it. But I would say, generally speaking, if you can feel in your body that it's a yes, and they're giving you all of that like positive affirmation and body language, you're probably a safe bet to just go for it.
Yeah, definitely. And if someone isn't open to that, or maybe they're not ready, that can be part of the experience too. And so if that is happening to you, try not to experience that or take that as a personal rejection. It's just someone, making choices about their own body. And we support that on Flirtations. Yes, we do.
Yes. One of the best. Can I tell you my favorite response for a boundary?
Yeah, please.
The best response that you can say when someone tells you no, or someone tells you, I don't think I'm ready for that right now, or I'm not interested, is saying thank you. Thank you for honoring yourself.
Oh, yes.
So good.
Oh my God, the demisexual in me is so turned on by that response because it's vulnerable, right? And it's about acknowledging, just witnessing where someone is at and how they're showing up authentically to them. And we love that. Now, gosh, I would kiss you after that. I would. I changed my mind. One more kissing.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. One more kissing question here, and you've probably gotten this. What if it's bad, Hannah? What if it's, it's not a good kiss? Is there a way to maybe verbalize what you would prefer, or you're just turned off now? What if the kiss isn't so great?
I think context is really important. So like if the situation is like, oh my gosh, everything else about this relationship is a yes. Like, I really vibe with this person's values. I really think that we are a great match together. We have so much in common. There's like a great rapport here. And the kiss was just awkward. Throw out the first bad pancake. Every time you make a pancake, the first one is always shit. So like, just, maybe he was nervous, or they were nervous, or she was nervous. And the first time it was like, blah, like they were just not able to be there with you in it. Try again. If all of that is true. If you were trying to test for chemistry because like all the other stuff was like not that good.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh, well, maybe the sex will be good, or maybe we'll just like vibe physically and like all the other emotional stuff like isn't a fit. And then the kiss is bad. Just throw that pancake all the way out. Like you just like don't need to keep going with that. As far as like training someone on what to do with your body, I think I'll just like zoom this out more generally beyond just kissing. Is like, of course someone's not going to know what to do perfectly for you.
Yeah.
Like that seems like a very unrealistic expectation to hold, that someone who is new to the experience of your body will know what to do better than you do, or will know all the things that you like. You know, maybe they had a partner in the past and that partner really loved a lot of tongue and really loved it really sloppy and really loved really loved lip biting, and all of that shit just like grosses you out so much.
Yeah.
Like they are just acting based on how someone else trained them, or based on positive feedback they possibly got from the past. And so it's, you know, if it's worth it, if this person, you know, everything is trainable. If it's just a matter of like, do I want to allocate my resources to training this person? And if it's someone that you really like and really care about, it's worth a try. To share, like, oh, actually, I prefer a little bit less tongue, or I actually would love if you kissed me really gently a few times and then kissed me on the neck. That would really turn me on, right? Like I'm a huge fan of acting, like speaking mostly in the positive and affirming what is good, like positive reinforcement, and then asking for more of what you like and what you want. That it works for dogs and it works for humans.
I was just gonna. This was. I feel very validated and affirmed right here, because that tends to be what I do. It's like people love to hear what they're doing right and what they're doing well, rather than I don't like that, you're doing that wrong kind of thing. So it's like, hey, I really like when you did this, or ooh, how about we try this? I'm really curious what that feels like. Or you can slow down the pacing a little bit as well, or maybe speed up the pacing. And so not always feeling like you have to be responsive to what the other person is doing, throwing out that first bad pancake. Why is the first pancake always so weird? It just is.
But you got to figure out like the temperature of the pan, and like sometimes the consistency's off, and who knows? Yeah.
All right. Really good kissing tips. And now, okay, we're coming into the bedroom now. We're on the couch. We're in the car, wherever. And I think we've really set up this part of the conversation where you're talking about sex before it happens. So because I got a bunch of questions here, you know, what if I'm really nervous, if it's a first time, or I tend to be anxious regardless if it's the first, the fifth, the 10th. I think we've given the flirties a lot of context for just how to enter those sexual situations feeling less nervous, confident, empowered. And so, yes, for this first question here, let's talk about, like we oftentimes talk about what's bad or not good. So let's celebrate when it's really freaking good and you just want more. Yeah. Maybe how is there such thing as going too fast, or now you're just thinking about it all the time, right? Like you're just, yes.
I mean, that's a really interesting question, because in my experience, anytime that I have had really, really crazy hot sex, it's because my wound and their wound are fucking. Like it's actually like not.
Oh my gosh.
And shout out, like credits to one of my mentors, Annie Lala, for like saying that and pointing that out to me, because like that really is so true in all of my experiences. It's like I can have really amazing, wonderful sex with someone who I really know, but that takes a lot of time to build to that. If it's like a stable and secure relationship, to like really go to the depth of that place. If someone off the jump, we're having wild, crazy, hot sex, it's typically because there's some type of attachment wound that's kicking up insecurity and kicking up that like danger response, which in our brain has this like addictive quality to it a little bit.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm thinking like I don't like you can always say this on social media, but digmatized, right? It's like if you're sleeping, like, and you can apply this regardless of gender or identity. It's like when you're so right. It's like you're so real for saying that because it's not necessarily if it's a first time or you like a first date, second date that you really know this person, that you have a secure attachment or relationship with them at all. You just had incredible, mind blowing sex. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
know.
And it's not that that's, again, there is no good, right, wrong, bad going on
Yeah.
here. It's just something to be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just check yourself, like, notice, am I having really amazing sex here because I'm communicating effectively all the things that I want, because I feel really safe and secure with this person and I feel like we can go really deep? Am I having amazing sex because this is someone that I trust completely with my body and with my heart? Like, that is a different kind of amazing sex than we're having amazing sex because it feels like we're on a roller coaster.
Oh my gosh.
And like, just be aware and like, if you want the roller coaster, that is totally fine.
Hey.
Just know that like that's not really a setup for a healthy long-term relationship.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, buckle up because it's like you don't necessarily know where that roller coaster is going. It may not be a closed loop. It could be going all which way and all over the place. All right. Okay. All right. Some more sex questions here. This one from, yes, a flirty who says, they've been dating someone for a couple of months to about 2 months. Great guy. Sex is boring as hell. Didn't say anything about libidos. It seems like maybe they're matching there, but it's boring, Hannah. It's boring. What do we do?
Okay, great. So 2 months in, really great person. Seems like you like them. You like them enough to want to do something about this, which is good. First question is like, do they know? Like, do you think that they think that it's boring too? Like, is it boring for both of you, or are like they're having the time of their life and you're like, oh my God, like this sucks. It's just a communication issue to start, which is like something that I see a lot in a lot of my clients. And this is a metaphor that I think works really well. Is a lot of times in some of our first sexual interactions, it's like we will like have a movie night with them, and we show up to the movie night, and if we're not really firm or clear about what we want, we show up to the movie night and they're like, do you want to watch a documentary? And we're like, about basketball. And we're like, yeah, I love that because I want you to like me and I'm going to pretend that I love basketball and I am so into this. And maybe I might be, and I'm not totally sure, but I don't know what else to suggest. So I'm just going to do this. Like, we're going to watch the basketball documentary because I don't really have a firm opinion about what else we might want to watch instead. Or I'm a little nervous that if I suggest a chick flick, which is what I really want to watch, you're going to shoot me down and then I'm going to feel really embarrassed. So you go along with the documentary and you're like, this was amazing. And even though it wasn't like really, and it wasn't everything that you wanted, but that person has no fucking idea. They're like, oh my gosh, great. She loves basketball documentaries. And so guess what? You show up for movie night again. Guess what they put on? They don't even ask
basketball.
Run it back. Run it back again and again and again. And they have no idea that you don't love basketball documentaries as much as they do. Like, that's a very common issue. And then you start hating movie night because you don't want to go watch another fucking basketball documentary, but you don't know what to suggest or how to walk it back from you being like, I actually don't like this thing, or this isn't that good. So that if that's the case, if that's happening, you have to clear that shit as soon as possible. Otherwise, that will ruin a relationship. That will cause resentment. It will cause disconnection. It will tank your libido. You will be absolutely uninterested in sex because you will only associate it with something that you do not like. So like, that has to be worked out in a communication as quickly as possible. If it's just the case, which is like, it's just kind of bland,
Yeah.
There are so many things that you could do
Yeah.
to change that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Easiest access point is a blindfold. That is the cheapest and easiest tool for making things spicy. You can literally just do everything exactly the same, but blindfold one person and it's a completely different experience.
Okay. So good. And that would be, this is another question that came through. Some ways to, if you feel like you're getting into a routine, so to speak, with your sex life, with the person you're dating in a relationship, some ways to spice it up a little bit. Blindfold.
Oh my gosh.
What are a few others?
Fuck in a different place. If you always have sex on the bed, literally just put the mattress in the living room, or like fuck on the couch, or like just do it in a different space, a different place. Is going to feel completely different. I think that just spending more time in the lead up to sex.
Oh my gosh.
And there's so many things.
It's just what I was thinking too. Yeah. I want to hear what, your thought on this.
Well, there's just like so many things that you can do in the lead up to for example, like if you define sex as what happens when our clothes are off and there's maybe someone's being penetrated or there are orgasms happening or the lead up to orgasm happening, if that's like how you're defining the experience of sex, then there's so many things that happen before that you can play with that make that experience really much more interesting, which are like role playing is a huge one. Like flirting and pretending to be different people is like so fun. Have done many of those. A massage role play is one of the easiest to do. Yeah, my partner and I have pretended like he's an escort and I'm like hiring him as like a male escort. We meet up at like a hotel, like super fun and easy. Nothing about our sex specifically was different, but the context was completely different because I hired him to have sex with me. So like, again, different context. So that's a context switch, but then you can also do like specific acts that lead up to it, like blindfold each other and feed each other fruit or chocolate, or like massage is like super easy as a lead in to really get your bodies connected, or put on some of your favorite music and like have a little dance party together and like do some grinding and some sexy dancing and like have a flirtatious, playful time in that. Or if you want to make it like more ceremonial, like take a shower and wash each other's entire body leading up.
Yeah.
It's like
really, that's hot. Really good suggestions. I was thinking to use the flirt. So maybe like you're both at work, you're spending your days apart, but date night is coming up. You've already had sex and that's a part of your relationship, your connection. Maybe you're going to get a selfie. Maybe you're going to get a text like sort of teasing what may be coming later. Maybe you send them a post by you about something to try in the bedroom, right? These are all things you can do. And I'm thinking to that one, I feel like I reference Sex in the City constantly because like I'm brain rotted. Like it lives rent free in my brain. Takes up so much mental space. But that one episode with Samantha and Smith, where role playing was huge, and they explored it for a little while, and they would do that hotel meetup, sort of like the businessman and the escort, or someone just like, oh, I'm just here, like girls' night out, but my friends didn't show up, kind of thing. Oh, right, what are you doing here? So, I love all of those tips. I've got a few more questions I want to get to, as this has been such a fun conversation going by so fast. Talking about now, the classic libido question, we got to talk about that. And so this came through a few times where if you feel you have the higher or perhaps lower libido and you're dating someone or you're with someone and it's just a mismatch there, how you can maybe navigate those expectations and just, difference in libidos.
Okay, so for this conversation, I think one of the key things to bring into the conversation is just about responsive desire versus spontaneous desire, because I think that's it's something that a lot of people miscategorize themselves, like they mislabel themselves as low libido, when in fact they actually have a totally healthy, normal functioning libido, but they don't have the context or the inputs required for them to feel more arousal and more desire. Okay. So the difference between spontaneous and responsive desire is that people that have spontaneous desire are what you would traditionally categorize as high libido. Like they just think of sex out of nowhere. They are in the middle of their day and suddenly they want to have sex, or like it just is like, it feels like their sex drive is like lightning. Like it just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And the way that it functions as far as like the actual physiology of it is that the desire happens before the arousal. So desire happens mentally. So they have a mental desire, I want to have sex, and then their body responds with the signs of physical arousal.
Okay.
People who have responsive desire typically work backwards, work the opposite way. They are more like a campfire where they have to like gather the kindling and bring all the woods and the ingredients together. And then they light the spark, and then you have to blow on it. And it just like takes some time to build the flame and build a big fire of desire in their body. And so what that means is often they need willingness, like they need an openness to sexual desire. They need positive associations with sex from past experiences. They have to have satisfaction. They need typically some level of emotional intimacy in the context of the situation. Not always, but that is often a critical factor. Yeah. And then a lot of times they need physical cues. So their desire happens after physical arousal. So that means that they need pleasurable stimulation. They need pleasurable input. They maybe need a sensual connection or a kiss or like that intimate conversation. And then once their body starts displaying signs of arousal, then their brain goes, oh, I want sex after that.
Okay.
So a lot of the mismatch that we see happening is because someone that has spontaneous desire goes to their partner who has responsive desire and goes, do you want to have sex right now? Yeah. And the responsive desire person is like, I had literally no time to build the fire. Like I had no time to get my body on board. And so you're speaking to the mind that is not turned on, and it's always going to say no.
Okay. Really so good. And this is why I was so grateful to find your content, because I thought something was broken in me. I thought I just had this abnormally low libido. Why am I not interested in sex like I feel like I should be? Especially like if you're, oh my gosh, if you're a gay guy flirty listening to this, we live in such a hypersexualized culture. And I know this is true for many of us across the board. Just, my experience as a gay guy, it's like entire conversations and connections and communities are based solely around sex. And I never felt like I fit in. I was like, oh my gosh, where do I belong? But then learning this, that it's really not that I have no sex drive or low libido. It's I have responsive versus spontaneous desire. And so really, really helpful. What are maybe one or two strategies for the couple, whether they're dating or in a relationship, you've got spontaneous and responsive to, start to light that campfire.
So there's work that has to be done on both sides.
Okay.
The person that has responsive desire, part of their responsibility is understanding what actually are the things that stoke that fire for me personally. And again, like I've mentioned a lot of them here, but usually they fall into the category of like there is some type of sensual arousal or sensual component, environmental component. Okay. Also, like your body likely has to not be stressed or breaking out or shut down. Huge component. So like it's not just about like what turns me on, but also how do I reduce all of the turnoffs from my environment or my internal state. And also the last piece for that person with responsive desire to figure out is like what actually makes sex satisfying and rewarding for me. Because if I'm having like consistently rewarding and satisfying sexual interactions, there is more willingness and openness to do it again in the future. So it's like, okay, what that person that has responsive desire, their responsibility is to figure out, okay, what are those things? How do I cultivate those things? How do I ask for those things? And not make my desire wrong, not make it wrong that I actually need those things to feel desire. That's not broken. There's nothing wrong with that. Exactly like what you said. The person that has spontaneous desire, their work is to understand that a no is not a personal rejection from their partner. Like it's really important for that person in the relationship or the person that has higher desire and higher libido to understand that if their partner really doesn't want sex as much as them, it's not a rejection of who they are. And so looking at for that person, like, how have I entangled sexual validation with my self-esteem and doing work to improve self-esteem and support myself in feeling good, regardless of what my partner says. Because if I'm always coming to request something from them and they're saying no, it's very natural to feel rejected by that and disappointed by that. And if you like make them responsible for those feelings of rejection and disappointment, they are going to feel pressure. And then so anytime that they say yes to sex, it's not going to be a consensual yes. So like, it's really important for that person to take responsibility for supporting in themselves. How do I handle feelings of rejection? How do I deal with disappointment? And how do I also continue to advocate for the things that I need and support my partner in getting their needs met? So like not shutting down in the face of that as well is it's tough on that side. I will also say that like there are often other things that that person is trying to get from sex. So I've heard often like, oh, I need sex to feel emotional connection. Like this is a common like theme that comes up with a desire discrepancy is the person that has lower libido is like, well, I need emotional connection to want sex. And the person that has a higher libido is like, well, I need sex to feel emotionally connected.
Okay.
The work for that higher libido person is to actually find other ways to feel emotionally connected and to get the validation, the reassurance, the approval, the security, the emotional connection that they're looking for from sex in ways that are not just penetrative sex, so that there's less pressure on the relationship to provide all of that for them.
So I'm going to come back to this part of the conversation. Do you think some of these communication and emotional connection techniques can be used as well for the couple that's experiencing like the person that's maybe pulling back or shutting down or starting to not communicate, some of those needs around sex where you're experiencing a pullback from somebody? Yeah, bringing in some of these communication and connection techniques.
Definitely. I mean, when someone's doing that, when someone's pulling away, pulling back, shutting down, all of that is just a protection mechanism.
Okay.
So one of the most important realizations that I've had in my relationships is depersonalizing the behavior that someone's displaying. Like really like, this is not about me. This is not about the relationship. Like if they're doing something that looks like an emotional reaction, a shutdown, a disconnection, a pull away, or on the other side, like an anxious, a grasping, a reaching, all of those are just, they're triggered. Like their inner child is reaching for something or trying to protect itself. And instead of seeing them in that moment as like a fully functioning, healthy adult, like how can I actually remember that that's just a small person with coping skills that they're using in this moment, and like have empathy and compassion for them in that. Any communication that comes from a place of trying to understand and a place of empathy and compassion is always going to turn out better than why aren't you doing this for me? Or why are you hurting me like this? Or why are you pulling away? Or why can't you listen to me? Or why do you always shut down? Or like da 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 da. Those are you making it about you instead of you actually trying to understand, like, what happens in your body when you're pulling away, or what's really going on behind the behavior that you're displaying right now. Like, are you okay? Like,
Really, really helpful, because it's like those shifts in dynamics inside and outside the bedroom are going to be a part of your dating life and your relationships. Like, it's very normal. And so oftentimes, like, I'm glad you spoke to the rejection piece, a part of this as well, because it's like, I've been in that where it's like your experiences as a personal rejection, where it's more so what's actually needs to be talked about, where's there maybe an unaddressed need, or if the person you're dating, you're in a relationship with, is going through something, starting to bring some of that intimacy, connection back into things. This has been, oh my gosh, I can't believe how quickly this went, Hannah. This was an incredible conversation. I'll just end with yes, where the flirties can find you, where you live on the internet, how they can work with you, learn more about your work.
All of my stuff is the Libido Fairy. So you can find me libidofairy.com, the Libido Fairy on YouTube, the Libido Fairy on Instagram. I'm not on TikTok because they hate sex. So
True. Yes.
So yeah, find me that way. I'm always just sharing content and support. And if there's anything that you need, just slide my DMs. So
amazing.
Yeah.
And I'll have all of your links here in the show notes for this episode. I can't thank you enough for being on Flirtations, sharing so much with the flirties. I've learned myself so much. Yeah, really dream collaboration. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Flirties, that's a wrap on this episode of Flirtations. Thank you so much to our guest, Hannah Deindorfer, for coming on the show today to share so much with us about physical intimacy, libidos, and sex, and dating and relationships. This was an incredible one for me. Just learning about responsive versus spontaneous desire alone, I feel like shifted so much for me and is amazing advice, just knowledge I'm going to take with me in my own dating life and into my relationship. So I hope you got some really cool stuff from this conversation. And go follow Hannah, y'all. She's amazing. Okay, flirty. Thank you so much for tuning in, for listening, for streaming, wherever you may be in the world. I could not do any of this without your support, your listens, your shares, your comments, all that stuff. So thank you so much for being here. It means the world to me. Please rate, review, subscribe to the show if you haven't already. Share it with a friend, someone you know, even mildly like you want to share some BFE, big flirt energy with. I'd love you for it and greatly appreciate it. Okay, flirty. Signing off officially here at Flirt Headquarters. My name is Benjamin. I'm the Flirt Coach. Flirty. Happy flirting.